In my previous stream with Khaled, he asked an interesting question. I don't think although I think I answered it adequately, I think I could give a fuller answer about why I do what I do. So basically, I was saying Westerners don't have a religion. They seem to think that Christian, those who are social conservatives, but their belief in these principles is fluid and uncertain. They're very easily distracted. And I might have said something about Christo-morons who sway in the wind and never really say what they're supposed to say because they are too stupid or scared. And Khalid asked me why I bothered then. And my answer is that, well, if you see somebody flailing in the swamp of their ignorance, don't you have a duty to tell them? And, well, since they control so much of the world, since the Anglo-American Empire is in fact global, then obviously their actions affect more than just white people in Europe. So that's why I keep banging on my drum of secular Quranism. And I'm not saying any religion will be banned. I'm saying every religion will be allowed if they do not promote anything that is against Quranic principles. And actually, it allows quite a lot of things, really. It would be nice to talk to people capable of reading the Quran, if only to tell me what about it they dislike. So back to the original question, why do I do what I do? I just don't see what else I can do if I want to be a political activist and make the point that, and make the universal point that every tribe, nation, and empire needs a functioning moral system that supports marriage and family values. Why is it so hard for this simple thing to be grasped? You don't have to like it, you just have to, understand what I'm saying in order to disagree with you. And I've pointed out again and again that all the 5 world religions do support patriarchy, which means they do support marriage and family values. So why is Christianity the odd one out? Why is it so gay and transgender? And I'm saying it's because it's failed. It has been replaced by liberalism, and liberalism in the 21st century means only sexual liberation from the rules of marriage and good parenting. And Christianity is most affected by liberalism because it seems Westerners don't know that liberalism was a religion since they started talking about classical liberalism, Manchester liberalism, which is a 19th century conception, and then it became liberalism and conservatism. You see, all the ideas that make up liberalism are mixed up and not properly labeled, not properly discussed, not properly defined. And this makes it conclusive that it's not a respectable ideology. And we can point to history and say attempts have been made in Europe to replace the failure of liberalism. Last century, when the Weimar Republic was imposed on the Germans, and they rebelled against it with Nazism, and the Italians rebelled against liberalism with fascism, and the Russians rebelled against liberalism with communism and then gave up. But the point is, Christianity has failed, liberalism was its replacement, and liberalism also failed, and attempts were made to replace it with Nazism, fascism, and communism. And I'm just making the point that all the wrong ways have been tried, and it seems that some people are looking for new wrong ways to try. And I'm saying, save yourself the trouble, do the obvious thing, use secular Quranism to restore patriarchy and make people respect the institutions of marriage and the family again. What is the problem? Oh, except that most people don't want to marry and don't want to become married parents. So that's why the complaining perpetually about being replaced. It's not that people are deliberately replacing them. It's just that if you're okay, if your presence, if your existence is being tolerated, but you're useless, then obviously, if there's a need for workers, then your government is going to import cheaper immigrant labour to do the things that need to be done because of the welfare state making all these white working class people too busy to do a full day's work because of the welfare trap. So I'd say everything needs to be reset. And I just don't see how it's going to be done without quite radical measures. So that's all I'm saying to Khaled, who prefers to beat about the bush and not really give Christians a hard time because he doesn't want to be I guess he doesn't want to call out the idolatry of Christianity. But if he were to do so, then the message would be clearer, wouldn't it? I think my message is pretty clear. I'm saying Christianity is so kaput that its replacement of liberalism is also kaput. And not only is liberalism kaput, the attempts to replace liberalism with fascism, Nazism, and communism are also kaput. So why can't we discuss the next moral system or even the subject of morality itself? I suppose the problem is that the people who tend to support anti-immigration political parties are low status, low income, low information, and low education. And nobody listens to them, and women don't want to marry them, and that is really their problem. So, and I don't see what else I can do. Well, I've done it for so long that with such failure, some might say, well, nobody's a secular Quranist. People are still pretending not to understand and still pretending that there's some mileage left in the old rust bucket that is liberal democracy. But actually, if you look at what the establishment is doing, they're actually preparing us for a civil war. And this is what Rashma and I are going to discuss on the channel, the coming British Civil War that will break out before 2030. It's not, the dissident, discontented people who are promoting it. People like David Betts, who's a Canadian academic at King's College, He's the one promoting it. He's allowed to promote it on YouTube. So I guess the powers that be are preparing us for the end of liberal democracy too. So we should be prepared with our proposed alternatives. Otherwise, they'll just give us new absurdities to believe in. After all, what could be more absurd than believing that MPs should be trusted to make up the rules as they go along when they're so stupid and corrupt and incompetent? It's actually liberalism is even more stupid than believing that God exists to punish evil. I think it's liberalism is almost as absurd as the Trinity. And the only way I can make my point strongly and quickly enough is to mock the Trinity and basically piss and shit on it as much as I can, as often as I can. Because the point needs to be made, doesn't it? That any group that wishes to remain in existence must have some method of sexual reproduction, some rule that limits. Well, it's a marriage license, isn't it? The government is saying that only couples capable of obtaining a marriage license should be allowed to have sex and offspring with each other. And this is a very, very old idea, but now people just don't understand, or they're pretending not to understand, or saying they don't care. So my view is that after all these years of making the same point over and over again before an audience who are composed of unmarriageable men who are low status, low income, low information, who prefer to blame Jews and Muslims and non-whites, it's time for them to acknowledge that it's not a viable strategy. People are not going to respect you even more for pretending not to understand what I'm saying. So that's why I do what I do. I think quite soon the penny will drop, because I do hear others speaking. Well, they're discussing my talking points. So I really think that even if they hate my message, they also know that there is no escape from the terrible burden of trying to get men and women in your society to get together, obtain a marriage license, and become responsible married parents, if only to produce the next generation of school leavers and who will enter the labour force of the next generation, if only to continue the existence of your society, nation, and civilization. I know I'm not saying anything controversial, it's just that most people don't want to do it. They are accustomed to playing the blame game, and they don't want to do anything different. But now I will finish, and before that I will read the comments. The BBC are never going to give me a job because the BBC are here to tell lies and obscure the truth. I will be on SJJ Mass on Saturday at 8, if I remember correctly, with Elliot. Christianity has changed its identity over the years. So currently it's liberal because the government wants it to be liberal. That's why the church is liberal. Christianity literally doesn't have any principles. It's only the Quran and the Torah that says, God says we must do, whatever. I mean, Christianity, well, Jesus didn't say anything that we can make any sense of, can we? Well, yes. I mean, the thing about Muslims and Asians, Hindus, is that they come from a culture um, that expects marriage and sees marriage as the next step in one's life, while white people think they have the option of being gay or transgender, and their parents just haven't got the authority or will to tell them any different. Yes, alphabet cat. I don't believe in democracy, and what I also make a point of saying is that I reject representative democracy. And if you think you can get out of this mess by voting, then you are part of the problem. And yeah, that's what I say.